I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Today on episode 103, I'm going to talk to Chris and Rolayo Ogbonnaya, who lead the church in Lagos, Nigeria. They share about what it was like as a disciple in the early days of the Lagos church. They talk about sharing with hundreds every single day on the way to work. They share about what were some of the difficult times they faced early in their ministry career, and how they've helped the church grow from one church to over 29 in West Africa. And finally, they talk about their handing the leadership to another couple and helping churches outside of Lagos. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, to make this life count, and to multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I want to start this episode by sharing a little bit of good news from Flagstaff, Arizona. It's June of 2021. Pam and I are up here for about a month to help the planting get off the ground and to train Brian and Abby Mackey, who are leading the church. Been praying to meet some people while we're here. And Pam and I were in a park, met a couple who were looking for a church. They came out to church. They want to study the Bible. That is so exciting for Pam and I. We were praying to God, help us to find open people. This last Wednesday, we were in a coffee shop. Pam talked to a guy. He's 41. He's a financial planner who's really searching spiritually. And I gave him my number and said, hey, call me. I'd love to talk to you. The next day, he texted me and said, I'd like to follow up with you. I really enjoyed meeting you. So I was so happy about that. So God is working here. He's forming the team. If you're interested in Flagstaff, just get a hold of me. There's another thing I want to let you know about. We are looking for a campus leadership couple. And we've had a transition from our previous leaders, and we're looking for a campus leadership couple, or it could be a single. What I'd need you to do is to go ahead and email me at rob@robskinner.com with your resume, and we could look it over and start talking at that point. I want to invite you to the 2021 Small Church Leadership Conference. The theme is Climb. This is for anyone who wants to grow, who's leading a small ministry or small church, and who desires to get inspired and get encouraged coming out of COVID. This is the second conference that we've had. The first one we entitled Look Up. This one is called Climb. It's December 2nd through 5th, 2021, December 2nd through 5th of this year in Dallas, Texas. We're staying at the Marriott Las Colinas. We've arranged hotel prices of $109 per night. Early registration is $125 until June 30th. Then it goes up to $150 until August 31st. And after that, it'll be $175. So please, you don't want to miss this event. It's going to be so inspiring, so encouraging, so equipping. You can register today at robskinner.com and look for the Climb Conference tab. That's robskinner.com/climb-conference. I look forward to seeing you in Dallas in December of 2021. Today on my program, I've got Chris and Rolayo Ogbonnaya. Chris and Rolayo were both baptized in Lagos, Nigeria, almost 32 years ago in 1989. That was the same year that the Lagos church was planted by the London church. They started in the full-time ministry in 1991, and then they got married in 1993. They have two children, Stephanie, who's 26, and Daniel, who's 22. Both are disciples. Since that time, they've served as evangelist and women's ministry leader in various regions and ministries in Lagos. They led the church in Accra, Ghana, from 2001 to 2003. Before joining the full-time ministry, Rolayo was running her private legal practice, and Chris was an aspiring law student. Both gave up their secular ambitions to pursue the call to serve as missionaries in the kingdom of God. Chris and Rolayo have led the Lagos Church the Nigeria and West African churches from 2004 till just a few weeks ago when they handed the Lagos leadership to Jide and Biola Oho. Presently, they now oversee the churches across Nigeria and English-speaking West Africa, which includes 29 churches in all. As regional family chairs, they also direct the School of Missions in Lagos. Chris has been serving in the Catalyst team of the ICOC since 2018 and Rolayo in the Women's Service team. Chris and Rolayo, it's wonderful to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you.
Chris and Rolayo, how'd you guys become Christians?
Well, I think our stories are very different. But funny, we became Christians the same year, but we only met, as young Christians in church later on that year. But I was invited to church by an old schoolmate of mine. We both had gone to school together in the university, and we had both graduated, but we kept in touch and we had a good friendship. And she got invited to a Bible talk by another, schoolmate of ours who had just gotten baptized in London earlier in 1989. So my friend, was studying the Bible, and she invited me along to also come and study the Bible. She was so excited about just meeting the church and seeing this new body of believers. I remember she called it that, and she asked me to come along for a Bible talk. I put her off for, I guess about 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, because I just felt I didn't want to be bothered with this new fellowship and all they were doing. But eventually I decided, just to get her off my back, I'd eventually just accept the invitation. So I really showed up this fateful Tuesday, and I went to the Bible talk, and honestly, from that day, I never looked back. I began studying the Bible the very next day, got baptized, I guess about a week or two after that, and that was in September 1989, and I haven't looked back since. That was how I became a Christian. That was way back in September 89.
Yeah, and I too got baptized September 24th, 1989. October 24th.
Yes.
October 24th.
Yes, right.
1989. I was invited by also a primary school mate that we lost contact for many years. We all went into high school. He went to a high school in a different city in the southeastern part of Nigeria. But we stayed connected. Those days we used to write letters, and post it to each other. We became more like pen pals and all that. And we stayed in touch. His name is Sonny Orinuta. Sonny was my very good friend. We were bench mates. We sat on the same bench in school, and we shared meals together. We played, soccer together and all that. But after we went to high school, we lost contact. And then after a while, he started reaching out to me when we were almost finishing high school and about to get into college. And so he started writing to me. And then later on, he came visiting. He found where I was living and came visiting. But somehow we were missing each other. Those days we don't have cell phones. You just have to show up in your friend's house. And if you're lucky to find them, fine. If you don't find them, you have to make a repeat visit.
Right.
So Sonny coming repeatedly and leaving me notes with my mom. And so it went on for a long time. Sonny reached out to me for almost a year, coming back and all that he was getting. And all of a sudden, my mom now prevailed on me. He said, this Sonny is always coming. He's leaving you notes. Why don't you go and visit him? And that was how I decided to go and visit Sonny. Incidentally, Sonny wasn't living very, very far from me at that time. So, and lo and behold, what he was inviting me to was to a Bible talk. And I wasn't, right at that time, I'd stopped going to church, anything that has to do with church, for about 2 years. I lost interest in church. I grew up for a very religious home, but I had questions. My parents were JW. We went to church regularly, but I was a very troubled young man. I had many things in my heart that I was feeling. I grew up just, asking a lot of questions. And they weren't able to answer those questions. So I decided to just turn my back against church and all that. And so that was right about the same time Sonny had invited me. So I went to study the Bible, and I walked into this group of excited young men and women in the Bible talk. They were all, I was like looking at them funny. I mean, what can make young people so excited about the Bible? I mean, why are you inviting people to a Bible and it's so much fun and excitement? So I went to see, and incidentally, I saw the first time. The second time I was going to go, I went with 7 of my friends. I brought 7 of my friends who used to hang around. We said, let's go, because there were a lot of young women and men. And so we felt it was more like a religious party. So let's go. But our interest wasn't in studying the Bible. We just wanted to just hang out with this group of very excited young men and women. They had music, they had nice refreshments, we loved the refreshment. We wanted to really have fun. So that was how they invited me to study the Bible. At first I was like, yeah, let's study the Bible. I had questions. Let me tell them some few things that I know from my religious days. Let me show them, But it was a very convicting time. I want to use the opportunity to thank Charles Eliku, who is now an evangelist and women's ministry there with his wife. They are now leading the church, some of the region in the London church. Charles studied the Bible with me, and he became more like a spiritual father to me. I lost my dad at 14. And so at the time the church met me, I was 24. So I had a very troubled starting young man and with no direction and all that. So the church really helped me. I really had a lot of sin in my life that I struggled with. But they studied with me, they bore with me. As I was studying the Bible, I invited my brother, my elder brother, who is also a disciple now, and with his wife and 3 of his children are disciples. Yeah. So we were really, really excited about the church. And 24th of October, 1989, I turned my life over to God. And ever since then, it's been a wonderful journey in the last over 30 years. Yeah. So, wow. So that's how I became a disciple.
Yeah, I will also add too that also while I was studying the Bible as well, I also invited my sister, and she came along. I just told her, I just went home one day in the middle of my studies. I probably almost through my studies, and I thought, you know what, I just got it. I have 4 siblings. There's 5 of us, but I was pretty close to my younger sister, the one who comes right behind me. And I got home that, and I said, you know what, I'm inviting you to church. I'm inviting you to a Bible talk, and I don't ask me any questions, because she was pretty religious, and I knew that if she asked me questions, I probably might not be able to answer. So I just said, you know what, don't ask me any questions, just come. She was stunned, but she did accept the invitation. She began studying the Bible, and she got baptized just about 2 or 3 weeks right after me as well. Yeah. She's also still a disciple. She's also on staff here in the Lagos church, and she's married to an evangelist here, and their son is a disciple as well. And it's just amazing that we were able to just get that connection. I also have another sibling who eventually became a disciple years later, but I'll talk more about that later.
Wow. Well, how did you guys get married and get together?
Yeah, we were singles, and the church then was, a little about 100 when we joined the Lagos church, full of a lot of life and excitement. We went, as disciples, we went on dates every Saturday for 4 hours. So you have to, get a date, get out there from, 4 p.m. to about 8 p.m. And so we, I think for Rolayo and I, we were friends. I mean, we got talking. I think what happened was, in those days, we used to have the brothers ask. Then all of a sudden, it became what they call the reverse dates. This time that sisters could now ask. So I was her first reverse date. So she took me out and gave me a big treat. And that's the first time I'm having a woman spend a lot of money on me and take me out. It was weird. It was like, wow, and she really gave me a good time. And that opened up our friendship.
Yeah.
And we started, going out, and she on date more regularly. And of course, one thing led to the other, and we started to see that we were in love with each other. And,
Okay.
Why are you laughing, Rolayo?
Because my version is a little bit different. Because we met, as young single people in the church then, and we developed a friendship. Really, we're both on staff as young interns type of thing, and I know we used to get together in a staff meeting, fellowship, and all, and we used to walk a long distance to take a bus back to where we lived and where we worked and all that after every staff meeting. And so I think along that time we just began talking, and I think that the fondness kind of started around that time. And then, like he said, we began the reverse dating. He was my first reverse date. I wasn't in love with him then, but I did ask him on a date, and we had a really good time. And I think we went on more dates after that. And I think it took a while before I realized he was the one. I think after a while we go on dates, and then I realized how, I remember there was this date that he didn't show up. I remember that. He asked me on a date, but something happened and he didn't show up, and I felt so disappointed. I think it was that day I felt so disappointed. I felt, most times if a date doesn't happen, I just feel, hey, no problem, some other time. But this time I felt so disappointed. I thought, this is odd. I got to be in love with this guy. And then we started dating, and then we started dating June 1991, and we got married January 1993. Yeah.
Wow.
So it wasn't love at first sight, but it just grew into a very, very deep fondness and friendship over the years.
It's funny how that works when you start working together, spending that incidental time together. Things kind of happen over time. I remember
Exactly.
Yeah, with my wife Pam, we were asked to lead a campus ministry together, and once that happened, it just happened naturally. That's for sure. Can you, one of the interesting things about the church there in Lagos, I mean, it's just got such a storied history and so many inspirational stories, but also many challenges. I'm so interested. What was it like in those first 4 or 5 years as that church took off? I mean, it was explosive. We'd hear stories that just blew our minds. So many people becoming Christians, but also a lot of challenges. What was it like to be a part of that church in the early days?
Yeah, wow. It was mind-blowing. It was such an exciting experience in 1989, where you have a bunch of young men and women with a lot of passion, with a lot of zeal, with a lot of courage and faith. The story of the missionaries who came down from London, Nigerians. We Nigerians, I mean, everybody wants to get an opportunity to leave the country and maybe go to Europe, go to America, and go and pursue whatever, and to see young men and women who had careers, who left the country, coming back to Lagos to come and plant the churches. And they were so most of them, if not all of them, were professionals. That blew me away. That was an amazing thing in the church. And the way they lived, I was a very religious person, like I said, and again, I was very skeptical about, ministers and, anything that has to do with God and all that. But coming close to these people, it was like, wow, the Acts 2, they were all together, they were devoted. To me, it was so real. You just saw the scripture come real, because every day, when the Bible says every day they met in the temple court, they broke bread together, they shared everything in common. Those times, the only time we have the brothers flat, most of them were singles. So we have the brothers flat, the sister flat. And each time you walked into the brothers flat, it was more like the big house and all that. You have young men and people coming in, studying the Bible, going out and coming back. We're going out sharing our faith. We had meals together, you know, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. We prayed together. We did a whole lot together. The bonding was exceptional. You know, some of us didn't even miss going home. You know, even those who had jobs, when they finish from their jobs, they're losing their tie, you know, through their coat, and they're in the brother's flat and sometimes people have to basically come and drag you out of the fellowship. It was amazing. And we're growing. We're just lighting up the whole city as so full of energy, so full of life. And so that was where I got my inspiration, really, about doing this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I think I think God blessed us with faithful leaders. There was a high expectation. Everybody was just living out the mission, really. When I got baptized, it was like, honestly, nothing else mattered to me. When I first studied the Bible and I saw discipleship, and I realized that's what had been missing. I had been done my own thing, trying to be religious as well, and then trying different churches here and there. But the day I looked at discipleship, I realized, wow, this was what was missing in my life. And I just grabbed onto it. And I think the church was our leaders were so full of faith and expectation. We were always just imitating their zeal, their faithfulness, their courage in sharing their faith, and their expectation that we ought to just imitate that faith. It was also following the leadership of, you know, Nietzsche and Daisy Ogbonnaya, like you mentioned earlier, and then Tokes and Bola Sholu, you know, Charles and Pat, Henry and Marilyn Creeds. I lived with the Creeds for a while, and just their example and their faithfulness was an upward call to us as young people, and it was just amazing. Yeah. So living out that dream, living it out for me was everything. I knew that I was a young lawyer when I got converted, and I was working. At first, I began working for the church part-time. So I'd work in my office, in my law chambers in the morning, in the daytime. Then in the evenings, I would just go into the ministry. And so I did that for like a year, attending the staff meetings, but working my job and just running my ministry. And I got to tell you, after a year, it became so clear to me that I loved the ministry. And I eventually gave up my law practice and came in full-time. But I was so inspired by what I saw, so inspired by being able to see lives changing. And that was because of the faithful leadership that we had.
Yeah, for me, it was like, even, wanting to get into law school, to do my law studies, I was really inspiring to want to be a civil rights activist. I wanted to be, a civil lawyer, to be able to defend people and all that. And then just embracing the message of God and seeing just how this was another calling. God is opening my eyes to see that you need to also defend my laws, as it were, So I caught the vision, and I was working then, but boy, I couldn't wait to get out of work.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get out of work. Even then, I was like a computer sales representative. I would go to the street. We would get to the street as brothers. We would preach in the bus, preach in the bus, going to work. I would get to work and I've lost my voice, and my boss would be like, "How do we go to work like this? You're talking like somebody who I've lost my voice preaching on the street and the bus. Would deliberately get into a bus that is full of people that is slow, so that you don't get to your bus stop early enough, so that you reach out to people. Sometimes we reach out to 500 people a day. We were just sharing our faith like crazy. It was amazing. It was like the time of our life. The years went so quickly. It's like, man, we were doing, we just enjoyed it. It was crazy. It was just an amazing, amazing time. Each time we think about it, it was great.
That's great. Now, Rolayo, you had your own law practice. Chris, you were a student. Did that present a challenge that Rolayo was already established in her career? And Rolayo, you seem super confident, super strong. Chris, was that a challenge for you in dating?
Yeah. Well, in a way, it was very inspirational for me, because I was a little bit, coming from a very poor background. I was a slow starter with trying to get into school, trying to, from a poor parent, trying to, see you through school. You have the ambition to go to college, but, your parents are not well-to-do. You have to fend for yourself. So I was a bit, I struggled financially, so again, those things could have presented some level of insecurity, but that I wasn't professional yet, because it was immediately I came into becoming a disciple, studying, that I now got my admission to study at the law school, and that was the same time I made a decision ministry. And what helped me was that I wasn't very insecure about that anyway, because I was very confident, because even at that time I had to go and lead a church outside of Lagos for about 9 months. So I was already sinking my teeth into this thing, the full-time ministry, when that opportunity came for me to study law. So my thinking, I was in a relationship with Rolayo at that time, and she was a lawyer. I was so inspired, by her faith, by her courage. I want to be a lawyer, and this is already a self-made lawyer, and she's out in the street. I have my disciple who was an actual scientist who left the whole thing in London. I know people who are medical students who left. So mine was, what am I chasing this law thing for? So I really made up my mind that, I can preach the word of God. I can teach people. I can get into the life of people and make changes. I've already seen that. I've tasted it. Why go back and spend about 5 years again trying to get a law degree that I will eventually give up anyway? So that was my conviction. And Rolayo, she wanted me to.
I think for me, I was just, honestly, I think our friendship was stronger than that. The difference in that, for me, I really fell in love with him. I admired his maturity. I admired his confidence. I admired his wisdom. And so there was such a bond between us that, and honestly, even when he got the admission to go to school, I was happy for him. And I even though we were dating, my attitude was, you know what, I'm behind you, whatever you decide to do. You want to go into school, I support you. You want to just do something else, whatever you decide to do, as long as it's what you want to do, I support you. So between us, it wasn't really a problem. I think we had a very strong friendship that weathered that. But I think it was definitely a problem for my family. My family felt, you know what, you can't, they did not like me dating him, and they did not like it when I said we wanted to get married.
He was like, these people are crazy. Why do you want to marry these people, man? So many things, tribal things, educational background, and the whole
church thing.
The whole church thing
they
too.
did not like the church.
You guys are just out on the street making a mess of yourselves, and it took a while for people to really see that this was God's plan for us. This is what we want to make a life of, and this is the path we want to follow to be able to help bring our country and our nation to God.
Wow.
So we had to pay the price, not too much support from family at that time. Because of course everybody's looking for you to be one thing or the other, but not really a preacher, not really a minister, because it's a poor business,
Right, exactly.
But I must say that over the years, that definitely changed. I think when they saw our marriage, and that definitely convicted my mom, seeing the kind of friendship that we had in the marriage and the way that we were able to build a family. That definitely melted my parents' heart. And so, all that changed as they saw the quality of our lives and what we built. And so,
Yeah.
So are you...
I think it took a while,
Help me out here. Are you guys from the same tribal background or different?
Yeah, we were different tribes.
Different tribes. Tribes. So he's from the eastern parts of Nigeria, and my mom is from the west. My dad is from the Midwest. So it's all spread across. And so my dad was very suspicious of him. His mom was also suspicious of me. So, but we look back at that, it's all funny now, but then it was pretty intense.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So different tribal languages, everything's different.
Yes. Different, yeah.
Wow.
So Nigeria has
About 500 languages.
Yes, and different tribes.
Oh my gosh.
You know, it's like every mile is a tribe.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, can you share with me some of the challenges over the past 30 years in terms of building the church and sending out the churches? Being in Lagos, I've just heard stories that have just raised my eyebrows and thought, wow, that must be a really tough field. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, we've had challenges at different levels. We had challenges at the earlier stages with leadership, you know, with different changes, planting churches, you know, going from, you know, one church to 10 to 20 to 30, close to 35 churches that were planted from the Lagos church. There were many challenges. We had to, you know, some of them were French countries. So we had to take French classes, you know, to be able to go plant those churches. And you know, there was the evangelization proclamation. It was exciting, but it was tasking. It was very challenging, you know, getting out there and living on the edge, you know, for over a decade, you know. So that was that. That was the leadership issues and character things that we have to walk through as a church, you know, personal challenges, you know, that I had to do with my own person, with my own character, some defining moments, some challenging moments for me in the full-time ministry. You know, I had to get in and out of staff twice before I got married. And then when I got married, we got out of staff again in 1999. And those were very, very tough moments for us. You know, we just had, you know, a very difficult time for me personally dealing with my character, you know, the pressures from inside that I just, you know, couldn't, you know, really approach from a godly, you know, with godliness. So there was 1999 was a defining moment of God exposing a lot of stuff in my own life, you know, just not being straight, you know, being afraid, insecurity, harshness in leadership, and just not being honest, you know, sometimes with doing the ministry because of whatever it was. But my heart was really very bad, you know, just being very competitive, just wanting to do everything to get by. So it was a defining moment having to leave and really reevaluate my sincerity and my honesty to want to do the ministry for God. So that was a very tough moment in our lives, and then it was a very dark time. But thank God He was able to get us back. We want to use something to thank Richard and Sarah Lawai, because at that time the Lagos Church has to change leadership. A whole lot, about a handful of us had to be asked out of staff, but my wife and I were restored back, and we had, you know, we were asked to come back because there was we had to repent and just love God for who we are and just go about doing what we are doing, and we were called back. And shortly after that, we had to go and lead the church in Accra, Ghana. So when 2003 broke, it was already, we had our own defining times. So we were able to, even though it was still hard, that was another hard, challenging time for us, having to come back to Nigeria in 2003. And then, so that was another hard time, losing a lot of our not foreign, but our frontline leaders. You know, a lot of them had to leave the continent, the Tollivers, the Alawayes, the Ogbonnayas, the Florence, and then these are great heroes, you know, the Zieglers, you know, Mark and Dan Ottenwellers, you know, are great heroes. You know, they all left, and that was a very, very, very tough time for us. Challenging time, having to, you know, lose these heroes and these guys that we looked up to. And so it was like thrown again into the dark. We didn't know what to do. I guess nothing prepared us for it. But again, maybe for me, 1999 did define some of the moments for my wife and I. So we were able to, at least personally, we were able to hold together. And some of the staff who are today, I want to use the opportunity to lift them up, great heroes of faith who stayed behind. And I can say 90% of them are still here after 30-something years with us in Lagos. And for Rolayo and I, we're very grateful that we can stand on their shoulders and we can walk together hand in hand this many years after 2003 to what we have right now. So tough financially, tough morally, tough leadership-wise, but we've survived.
Wow.
Yes, I think he just, I think that for us, God just really has helped us over the years to mold our character. I think like we described earlier with all the enthusiasm of the early years, we were definitely at some point caught up with that. But then again, at some point we weren't really watching our hearts as we ought to. So sometimes, you can do the right thing for the wrong reason. And so just getting excited about baptizing people, but our motives were not always in the right place. And sometimes we're just doing it because it was expected of us and all that. And I think God really made us reevaluate our hearts when we were kicked out of staff in 1999. And that was painful, but we can look back on it now and see how God used that to really make us be still before him and really, come clean, so to say, and reevaluate why we do what we do, and then make sure that our motivations are in the right place and that we always keep him in front of all that we do. And so that definitely was a huge defining moment for us in 1999. And incidentally, it was special because that's the time when my brother got baptized. That's a different story. But for me, that was the year my brother and my sister-in-law got baptized. So it was a dark time, but it was also a transforming and beautiful time as well.
That's great. Well, let me ask.
I think God just transforming us over the years through these challenges. I just look back with gratitude for all those who stood by us to encourage us through those moments.
Let me ask you a little bit about that. That was a time. How large was the church there in Lagos at that time?
In 99?
Yeah, I think we were we were hitting like 1,800.
Yeah, I remember at the time hearing crazy stories about just such rapid growth. And around the world at the time, there was a lot of good news being shared from different places that were rapidly growing, and Nigeria was always there at the top. And I'm sure that there was a lot of pressure. I was in the ministry in Japan, and we would hear stories about what you were doing there. And I think everyone felt a desire to keep the growth going, to keep things cranking, keep the ministry cranking and save souls. And I think everyone was young. Most of the people in the ministry were in their 20s or 30s, and there certainly was a sense of comparison between countries and how are you doing, and so the temptation was there to keep things on the bright side, keep the good news flowing, and to diminish the negative news, to keep that on the down low so the people didn't hear the dark side or what was not going that great.
Yeah,
you understand, Rob.
Exactly. So
we're just trying to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said we were just, it's just trying to keep up appearance, keep doing what you're doing. But there was really a lot going on. There was a lot of insecurities. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of dishonesty with our statistics, and it was just some shameful things that God just saved us from, and just God got us rescued.
Right.
God rescued us. So,
well,
that's the way.
I think everyone goes through those times in the ministry or in their lives as Christians when God really purifies motives, whatever it might be, in whatever role you're in. How did you guys get through that? How did you grow past it and to get into a better spot where your motives are different, you've been purified by God? Any advice, looking back, how did you get through those dark times? Because someone might be going through something like it right now?
Well, I think I'll never forget. The sister God put in my life then was Sarah Alawaye, and she encouraged. I'll never forget the advice she gave me. She said when I was struggling with so many bad attitudes and bitterness and all kinds of negative feelings, she says to me, "You know what, Rolayo, focus on the cross." And that advice, I'll remember it for as long as I live. And I think that really made me understand that, whatever I'm going through, Christ went through so much more for me. And I think also just really focusing on how God humbles us for our own good. I think reading the passages that talk about that for me were just encouraging for me. And I think we struggled, differently. I think God worked it out that when I was really down, Chris was in a better spot. When he was really down, I was in a better spot. So we kept on just kind of lifting each other up. But I think God put in our lives godly men to say, you know what, keep your eyes on God and just believe in what he can do through you. And that really pulled us through. I think again, too, just being able to, holding on to God too, reach out to my brother. My brother just came and just expressed how he just admired the way we were solid through this. And it wasn't too long during that time he started studying the Bible. So I think seeing his own faith grow was also inspiring for us as well. And it wasn't too long after that, we called back on staff exactly 5 months after we were fired. But I think for us, if I put it in just a sentence, was just keeping our eyes on God through it and believing that he had a plan for us that was better.
Yeah, I think there was for me the temptation of self-pity. There was the temptation of I let God down, and I was beating myself so hard, sometimes to a stupor, and I had to be reminded that it is not self-pity. You just got to repent. And then I remember studying this book. I keep recommending it to a lot of my friends. A Tale of Three Kings.
Right.
And I went through that journey, and I just had to. I think it's Gene Edwards.
Gene Edwards.
Yep. Yeah, Gene Edwards. Yeah, it really helped me to really study out the heart of the kings, and to just humble myself. To learn that, it's not over.
Yeah.
I remember when it happened, I remember the words that Mike Tolliver looked at me. I said, Mike, will I ever be given the opportunity to do this again? And he told me, it's never say never with God.
That's
God
right.
is a God of chances.
Yeah. That's right.
And that was very encouraging to me. And I said, if he was, that is a God of second chance. If I ever get an opportunity to do this again, I would do it for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And I did what I did that many years for myself, my pride, for my ego, for everything. And God just floored me. It was like, it was what? And all that. But for me, it's just that knowing yourself, knowing that you are nothing. We're just instruments in the hands of God. Learn the story of Saul. He was nothing, but God lifted him up. If we do not allow ourselves to be broken, God, then we will be crushed.
Right.
And so I just wanted to bring myself to brokenness. And then, and that helped me. It was hard. It was tough because some moments were great. Other moments were down moments. But I stayed, thank God for faithful brothers who prayed with me, people who encouraged me. And my wife was very strong in her character. And we're like, well, let's just dig it out and keep looking up to God.
Right.
But I must say it is a defining time. It's a time of learning that you want to do the full-time ministry, you want to live a life, a godly life, you just need to come clean. You just need to give your life to God and let him just use you to his glory. So for me, that was what helped me. Those times of learning to just do this without fear and favor. Whether you get recognition, whether you don't, it's not about the statistics. It's not about the numbers. It's about when you go to bed and you are able to say you serve God with a clear conscience.
That's right. That's right.
You cannot, you you cannot trade that for anything in the world.
That's right.
I'm grateful to be given that chance. Yeah.
What's inspiring is that was you were far from over, and now you've spent over 30 years in the ministry, which is really amazing, because in my experience, ministry has a very high attrition rate. People drop out quite often. And so the fact that you've been so productive over the course of 30 years is flat out inspiring. So you came back strong. You led a church in a different country in Accra, Ghana. Yeah. And then you went on to plant 28 or 29 churches. Can you tell me how that happened? I mean, you not only came back from getting fired, but you led the church, you became leaders of Lagos, and then went on to plant all these churches. How did that happen?
Yeah. Some of by the time we came back, and we took over leading the church in 2004. Yeah. We started leading the church in 2004. That's about 17 years ago. Yeah. The church, we had like 16 churches. Yeah, 16. We had 16 churches already planted. Yeah. So in the space of that time, we're just added about 13 churches. Yeah. We've been able to plant 13 churches from 2004 to date, and I think we'll have 2 more before the end of the year. Yeah. It's what can I say? I think God just preserved the work in Africa and West Africa. God just preserved it. It's not about us. We're just part of people, those who came out from the rubbles. We were just nothing, God just refined us and brought us. And I'm thankful that we're not the only ones that came out of it. Yeah. We had a bunch of great warriors who could easily be behind this camera talking to you, who could have, their stories could have been even more inspiring than our stories. There are leaders who worked with us hand in hand, side by side, and they are still doing so. I think in West Africa, we were blessed that we didn't have a turnover of staff. Most of our leaders from years back are still with us. So we all struggled together. We all went through the discipline together. We all have gone through transformation together. But we stayed put, even when we lost financial support, even when we stayed on the same salary for years. We all shared together, we hung in there, and until support started coming back again. And then the churches started doing well financially. And then we started nursing again the dream to go out and plant churches. First, we were in a preservation mode, and then in maintenance, and then we now recalibrated and said, man, we've got to get out and start working and start building the church together. And so Rolayo and I, we've been blessed. We've been blessed with some awesome lay leadership from which has come up. We have elders in the church now. We've raised up teachers in the church. And we've raised up, maybe 50 to 60% of our churches are self-supporting. We really, I think really, like they say, necessity is the mother of invention. When your back is to the wall, you just got to do something. And I think we are thankful for those defining moments because it brought the best out of everybody. And it also exposed the worst of us as well. So. Right. So we battled together. We're still work in progress. We're still dealing with our issues even up till today. But we're still brothers. We're still fighting on. We're still marching on. We carry in our bodies the scars. But we are happy to be and grateful to be here and to be given the opportunity every day to serve the church. So we planted those churches, and today we have people there who are heroes who are out there in some of these churches doing incredible things for God. And many young people, who we have been blessed with, who are coming through the cracks, through the ranks right now to serve God. So we are truly, truly blessed to see what God has done with us and for us in the last 17 years.
Okay. Let me go ahead and let's drill down a little bit and talk about that. Because in 2003, the churches experienced a time of discipline from God. The superstructure broke down, financing broke down. There was a dot-com bubble that burst at that time. There'd been a decade or so, or a couple decades of really generous giving from primarily the U.S., but other places as well. But at that time, the money just stopped. So there you were. Your leadership is gone. Many people have gone back. Many of the foreign missionaries who've started the church have gone back. The money's dried up. You're in charge. How did you come up with a plan? And not only that, but how did you learn how to lead a large church when you'd never done it before? And then you basically have to grow into. Can you just talk a little bit about, looking back, of course, I'm sure at that time it wasn't very clear, but looking back, how did you manage that? How did you rise to the challenge to go, okay, we're going to still grow with no money, a lot of the leaders gone, and the church in disarray?
Well, I think for us, like we said, I mean, we were in this hole together. We got to climb out, and we looked left, right, and center. We knew, we just have to do something. What convictions we have is that, yes, the church has been built on foreign, majorly with foreign support, and people have made sacrifices. We knew we had to remind ourselves how the Lagos church was planted. Teenagers went out on the streets to shine shoes and broke the Guinness Book of World Records. To people jumped out of plane, Doug Arthur, Mohan Nanjudan. I think a lot of all the brothers, Stokes, Showolu, Jim Blau, I think, and so many of them, to raise funds. I mean, these men risked their lives. We cannot continue to be recipients of such rich generosity and not do something. Nigeria is a very rich country. We have churches that go and plant churches in the US.
Right.
Right. And so we have a lot of people who give money for religious purposes. People have built mega churches, and we're sitting in this city, and so we can't sit back here and look at our belly button and cry over. Our brothers in the US are struggling. They have done, sisters in the UK, they've made their sacrifice and brought us this far. So we just got to grow up and do something, So we started speaking to the congregation. We started putting the financial realities before the church. We say, hey, this is what it's going to be. This is what it's going to take, and that's why we just have to put it before the church. I mean, people were really moved because before we seldom called the church to financial presentation or anything. If we're short of money, we got on the phone and we called New York City, and New York City would give us money. But we got to say, man, we've got to mature our church, and one of the indices of maturity is financial giving. Not just financial reception of money, but we've got to be able to not just manage the money sent to us, but to get money from our congregations. And so we began to talk about it. And slowly our giving started to get up there. We started to close the gap because there was a huge gap, and we started to close the gap. And so I thank God that we had to go through that. Even though it was rough, it was tough. I know we had tears in our eyes. It was like, our lolly has been taken away from us, and we're just sucking our thumbs here. So, but we just got to get going. I had convictions for my brothers and sisters on staff that we can get Lagos to be a self-supporting church.
Right.
We can get Lagos to be strong because everybody's looking up to us. We planted all these churches. They are hurting, and we got to put it before the church. Listen, we sent out mission teams to these churches. They are hurting. we've got to take monies, we've got to keep the leaders there, we've got to keep supporting them. And that was what happened. We started taking care of all these churches, and the contribution kept going. The temptation sometimes was to keep the monies in Lagos, but we just got to keep supporting those. And the more we gave out to these churches, the more the church felt the need of giving more and giving more. Our special contribution, missions contribution, we just kept growing and growing. And before we knew it, from one church in Lagos, we had 3 other self-support churches. It became 3, it became 4. And across West Africa, we have other churches that rose up to it. In Ghana, in Liberia, in Sierra Leone. You know, those were big churches in Monrovia, in Freetown, and in Accra. And so we just have to task ourselves that we just got to, some of the big churches, we've got to get our hands off the pot of support. and instead, let's put something into what our brothers and sisters are sending us overseas.
Wow.
And primarily we used money. We spent a lot of money trying to bring all the church leaders together. We did that every year. No matter how broke we are, we've got to pay for the leaders to come together for a time of prayer, for a time of inspiration. We have to fly them in. We have to bring them in, even if we're broke, because we felt like that unity of the Spirit, we've got to keep it going.
Wow.
And that really helped a lot. And before we know it, the fire started to grow, and the rest is history. But we are very, very thankful for those defining moments. Because if we kept some of this support going, maybe we don't know where some of our churches will be as far as financial responsibility and accountability is concerned. So that was some of the...
Okay.
Let me add also, I think everything that Chris has said, I think it's just, we're looking back, it's like, wow, all this happened. It's so true. The other thing that God really blessed us with is the family that we have in West Africa. I mean, the family of churches that we have in West Africa. We maintain that bond, and it's still strong to this day as we speak to you. And I think that was really helpful as a family of churches. Even through all that went happen in 2003, we maintain that level of connection and the interdependence and working together. Leaders going from one country to another, being able to have that flow, that relationship among us, among the West African churches, all this time helped us to have a team. And so when it was time to plant churches, we always had that sense of, we are a team and we're going to do this together. And so I think that also kept us focusing on the mission, focusing on, okay, here is West Africa. God has given us the choice to plant churches here, and we need to work at this together. So I think having that family in West Africa that we just have seen as the consistent factor, like he said, every year having conferences, you know, in different parts of West Africa, sometimes in Nigeria, sometimes in other countries, but we always try to make sure that we spend money bringing our leaders together to identify with the family of churches in West Africa, and that our mission is that we work at it together. That also helped us to keep our focus on the mission and see it advance. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So every time you talk, I think of 5 more questions that I want to ask you. But let me just ask you this question, Rolayo. Both your kids are disciples. You seem very happy in your marriage. You guys seem just really, there's a great chemistry. How did you do that, leading a church of thousands plus 30 or so outlying churches? You're getting all the tough calls, all the strange situations that are happening, all the, what do I do in this situation? How did you keep your marriage and your kids together doing that? Any secrets?
Oh man. Well, I think honestly that is an interesting question, Rob. I would say honestly, God has really blessed us. The first thing I would say really is that Chris and I have a really good friendship. And so for us, our relationship is fun. It's what we both just connect so deeply. And I think that's just a huge blessing. So, and I think that, honestly, I think everything else you've asked me about, it stands on that. With the kids and all, it's just that they see that they have the warm sense of family. And I think I cherish that very much. They know that we are good friends with each other. They know we love each other's company a lot. And they see that bond between us. And I think that inspired them. Like, in their own journey, to want to become disciples that they, I think our daughter became a disciple around 16 and our son around the same age as well. So I think it's that. I think I think we have a really great team, I must tell you. We have lots of amazing men and women around us who have been in the trenches with us, who also bear the scars of all kinds of challenges they've gone through and have overcome, and who have really hung on in there to their desire to also be useful to God and in advancing His kingdom. So we have a great team. We are not alone, not by a long shot. We have an amazing eldership behind us, amazing men and their wives who have our back, who watch out for us, who disciple us, and who are also there. So we don't feel like the pressure is only on us at all. We have strong regional leaders in various parts of the city and the country. And so we don't feel it's all on us, not by a long shot. So I think having that team around us and having a great family life that we enjoy, honestly, I would say that's the reason behind everything.
Yeah, I think, Rolayo and I are able to strike a great friendship. Like you said, I like my wife. I love, I like my wife's company. I've traveled everywhere with my wife. I feel we've been married for 28 years. That's I don't keep numbers. I only just look at my wife and she tells me. She's very gentle, funny, smart. She's everything that I'm not. And so I piggyback on my whatever. I mean, I just wanted, everywhere I go, I mean, I'm very confident with my wife with me. I know she will challenge me. She would stay by with me. We will laugh over even hard, difficult things together. We have a lot to look back and laugh about, and she laughs at my joke. Sometimes it's dry. But we do have a great friendship. We pray together. We've been praying together, eat together for a long time. Every day, pray with my wife, and we try to, put ourselves before God every day, literally everywhere we are. Sometimes, I mean, even in the plane where we're flying, everywhere we go, we wake up, we pray together, and it's fun for me. It's been a fun ride. I couldn't have asked for anything better in a companionship and in marriage and in family. My wife is a good homemaker. She's taught me to be gentle, to be able to connect with the children, to be able to connect with the leaders, to be able. Sometimes I don't, because I'm so close to her, so I talk a lot. By the time I talk, my sin comes out, and she will not back down. She will follow up on, the way you spoke now. I think you have an issue with this brother. And once my wife knows about it, I will never hide it. You just go, and she will follow up to make sure I talk to the person and I'm free and I'm able to talk. And so she's just pure-hearted. She just wants us to do the best we can for God. So I feel really blessed. And what she said about her, God has blessed us with great disciples. Michi and Daisy, Tokes and Bola, Richard and Sarah Lawaye, they're still there hanging on for us. Yes. We're very grateful. Mike and Brigitte, and so many other friends, Doug and Angela Wentz in Houston, and so many are locally here, our elders, all of them, the Yamos, the Ariolas, and the Binobas, the Okoduas, we all have gone, we are from the day of Pentecost. Yeah. And we are all, just looking to finish this race side by side. And so they've helped our marriage. They've helped us in our parenting. Yes. They've helped us in our leadership, just helping me to keep our heads. Like somebody says, how do you lead the whole church? By loving up on my wife and taking care of my children. You just got to keep it simple, by being a disciple. Yes, the other things about leadership and all the meetings, all the solving of problems, if I can't run my home, if I can't be happy with my wife, then I have no business leading the church.
Wow.
So the day I stopped playing that role, the day I stopped being a father and a husband and whatever, that's the day I stopped leading. So for me, it's very clear to me that, there are many things on my plate that I haven't been able to do very well and do whatever, but I'm not going to fail as a husband and as a father to my children. Yeah, I'm not the lead evangelist to my wife, Chris. I'm not the lead evangelist to my children. They just see me as daddy when I come home and myself, and we can just have a great family life. That's the way to lead. Just keep it simple, and God will do the rest, because the church is His bride.
That's right.
And God will take care of the church. So that's the way. It's tough. It's difficult, but once we keep it simple, God will do the rest.
Okay, so you guys are going through a big transition right now, a big change.
Yeah.
Can you share what's happening in your life right now?
Yeah, I think we have led this church for 17 years, and immediately we started leading the church, we were wearing 3 hats. Yeah, we were wearing 3 hats from day one. We were leading the Lagos church. We were taking care of the other 15 Nigerian churches, and about I think there were about 10 churches at that time or thereabout. But all was 16. Yes, all was about 16 that were leading, and we're supposed to provide leadership as the mother church, parent church to all this, because most of the leaders there, they were very good friends of ours. We have worked together, all the leaders there, and they respect Rolayo and I. We respect them, and we all decided we're going to work together. So by that dint of camaraderie and family, we felt a responsibility for them. They felt a responsibility and obligation to stay and get direction and all that. And so we had to formalize some of these things by, getting ourselves together and having a memorandum of understanding. That was helpful, when we all came together to say, we're going to put a memo together, we're going to work together in this way, in that way. We're going to help move leaders around. We're going to intervene in conflict matters. We're going to share our funds. We're going to share our ministry, our manpower, our resources together with the other churches. And people were open to that. And so we did that. And then we planted a lot of churches. But I must tell you, it's been tough doing that. We started leading the church at a crisis situation in 2004. Yeah. Finances gone, leaders discouraged, low morale, anger, a lot. The staff was hurting. Everyone was hurting, left, right, and center. And we too came from Accra, Ghana at that time, discouraged ourselves, wanting to leave the full-time ministry. But God threw us into this deep end. So we had to say, well, we just got to rough it out. So it was really rough and tough for us. And so we had to ride this wave upon wave upon wave. But as the ministry continues to expand and grow, we started, some level of maturity started to come in and all that. And of course, the weariness and the tiredness, health challenges. Rolayo is a stroke survivor. Yeah. She had a stroke. That was 2008. She had a stroke, and that was very scary. It was very scary. She survived that, and we were actually in the States when it happens in Indiana. Yeah. And again, if those in Indiana are hearing us, thank you so much.
They're taking care of
the church there in Indianapolis. They took care of her. Yeah. She was hospitalized for almost 3 months. Yeah. She was taken care of, by God's divine grace. Maybe another day, another time we'll share that. But that was God's hand calling us. We were everywhere we were needed. Conferences fly here and there. We come to the US like twice a year, both in summer and in the spring and in the fall, attending meetings, traveling from one country to that. We really run ourselves to the ground serving us. And it does take its toll on you. So the financial part, but also the health part, and of course, the need for leadership. We couldn't have carried this burden alone. So there comes a time when with maturity, with elders coming in, with teachers, with more maturity, we felt it would not be right to continue to bear this burden. We got to share this burden. But we've got to do it strategically so that we can get our other brothers and sisters who have matured to take this load off. And we are so very thankful for the response of the staff and the response of the elders. And at one point when we were talking about Reggie, it was like you're talking yourself out of a job.
Right.
But from us, there's never been a job. It's been about leadership inclusion, sharing the burden. A lot of those who are looking in, they want to help. They want to work. And we've got to trust that. And we've got to let people into our leadership circle. So I think we're all an aging staff, but God helped us. We now have a school of missions. Thank God for the Beam Foundation from the Boston Church. In the last 4 or 5 years, they've been giving us support to raise up. So we started seeing a new stream of young people come into our staff. It's great to see a 24-year-old, a 22-year-old, so it was really exciting and it really got us going. So, and the work kept expanding. So we just see the need right now to refocus and help some of our churches, especially we are in a union, we're in a family of churches where Nigeria seems to be way ahead in terms of with resources, with evangelists, elders, and teachers. But the other 5 countries, are a little bit behind, very behind, really. Of the 29 churches, about 17 of them are in Nigeria, and the rest are outside the other 4 countries. Yes. And so our target and our goal was to relinquish the leadership of the Lagos Church with 12 regions. The Lagos Church has 12 regions. And we have evangelists and women's ministry leaders in these 12 regions. And we have elders and we have teachers. And so that church has really matured. And it's time for them to work together so that Rolayo and I can spend, the next 3 years or so helping these other churches and so outside Nigeria. And so the proposal seemed right to the elders and the other leaders so that it can give us more free time, because sometimes when we go to some of these countries outside Nigeria, we don't spend more than 1 week. And there's so much you can want to do. Everybody is looking to, you wish you could stay more, but you just want to go and get by because we just got to keep Lagos going. And sometimes you don't feel, well, if you are not there, things will not happen. But Lagos can happen without us, and we can help spend more time in Ghana, spend more time in Liberia, spend more time in Sierra Leone. Our goal is to spend quantum time there teaching, working with the leaders there for an extended period of time over each year, and to be able to teach, instruct, and work with their young people and work with their staff over there. We need more staffing in these churches. Yeah. We need more lay leadership training, and we want to provide that. And they are looking forward to it, so that can give us that time. And so the Lagos Church has been magnanimous to be able to still support us financially, and still for us to be able to serve in that capacity.
I see.
So that is the structure we have right now.
So essentially, you are traveling missionaries, evangelists, and women's ministry leader to serve and support churches outside of Nigeria. And to equip them and to help the churches that don't have the resource and that the church in Lagos. And so you've passed on the church leadership to another couple, and you're doing the work of the Apostle Paul and strengthening the churches that have been planted. That's great.
Okay. If you say so. it is a biblical structure that we think can help get these other churches, going. And of course, when we do travel to these churches, we're going to bring some of the resources with us, because as we go visit the elders, sometimes we won't go alone. We go with the teachers. We have traveling with the teachers. They come with us. Some of the evangelists come with us for the long period. We have the elders coming. We do eldership shepherding training for them. We do some teaching with the teachers, while Rolayo and I do most of the discipling and leadership training. So it's a whole package that we are bringing with us.
Right. And so you're also heading up the church, the School of Missions. So so you've raised up a lot of talented people. I interviewed Gilbert Kimeng, and he shared what he's doing, and some really gifted people that you've got there. So you'll be working with them.
Yeah, it's a huge blessing for us to have Gilbert and Perita Kimeng. They've really, Gilbert has been like a breath of fresh air as far as us working together to improve our teaching ministry and global connection, continental connection, because Gilbert has also, there's a huge part of French West Africa. There are only just 5 countries that are English speaking in West Africa. Yeah. We are all sandwiched by French. And so Gilbert is always there as the interpreter. He's always there as the go-to guy. Yeah. He's very pure-hearted, great sacrifice, great worker. He is a breath of fresh air to us in West Africa. And he's in Nigeria. So we can always be able to raise support. Yeah. And we thank the European churches in Germany and all those that are supporting him. I want to say thank you for the effort for him to truly go out there and just flourish and just be able to help bring those connections. So Gilbert is going to be working with us with the School of Missions, as we want to also be able to replicate what we're doing in Lagos, in Abidjan, in Nairobi, Kenya. Already we're in Southern Africa, in Johannesburg. So and we have great plans. I want to thank Douglas Arthur and the leadership of Beam and just the great heart that they have to really help us raise a bunch of young men and women to really help us in this mission effort. So I mean, right now it's mind blowing to know where these young men and women, what they want to do. They keep us awake and alive. I think having them around was like being resurrected, because you just got to keep going. So my wife and I, that's where we want to terminate, so to say, because after we do the strengthening, we want to also keep the School of Missions, because that's where we're hoping it's going to be a part of how we're going to renew leadership in West Africa. Because right now we have 19 of them. They are all 19 students. They are, in the next 2 years, we should be able to send them out. We sent out about 15 last year. They are all in different places. We have 19 ready to go. We have much more people coming in. So that support has been very strategic, and we're very thankful, and we're hoping that it will expand and grow, and we can continue to raise up great leaders. And so we want to share our experience and be able to just work with them, to help us continue to plant churches and to even strengthen the already existing churches. Because we do have churches that are led by volunteer leaders, couples, and they can only grow the church so much. So we want to put young leaders that can take our churches from 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 to 100. Because right now we don't have churches. The disparity between Lagos, which is almost 2,000 disciples, to the rest is just too far. It's just, the gap is just too wide. So we need to bridge that by throwing a lot into helping these churches, because without trained, tested leaders, some of these small churches ain't going to grow as much as we want them to. So we need to make that sacrifice by training them and letting them go do the work out there.
Okay, so let me ask you some ministry advice right now. I'm in the middle of a church planting in Flagstaff, Arizona, and it's a church that's been here since 1994 and has gone up to 37, then back down to 4 people, and then it went up to 12, and it's been led for the past 14 years by non-professionals. And now we're putting together a team to re-energize the church and to restart it. Any advice you'd give to help us to get this church to be strong and healthy?
Yeah, I think from my experience, the first thing that I would say is leadership. We got to have a focused, committed, full-time leadership for our churches. I'm all okay with professionals who are doing their regular jobs and leading the church. They are great-hearted people. They all make sacrifices that are amazing. But from what I have known, the many years I've been here, 17 years, seeing these churches, the same scenario you are painting, Rob, is the same scenario.
Yeah.
And so we've got to learn from that. There are churches that have started well, and then we decide that we do not, those churches, we cannot put full-time people because we don't have the money. So somebody who is a medical doctor, or a professional, or whatever will lead the church. There's so much that person can do to really lead that church. And right now we have examples of young, fired up people full-time who have taken a church from planting from 10, 15 people to 50 people, and they are growing. And we've had professionals starting with 50. Right now, there are 2 members in the church. Not a fault of their own, but our building strategy needs to change. Like, sorry to say, Mike used to say, we need to build effectively. Yeah. We need to build with strong building blocks. Yeah. If we don't build with solid building blocks, with time, the wildering will come in. And we have that principle in the Bible. If we don't build on rock, our house will not stand. So one of the thing that is the rock foundation is leadership. If we don't have a very strong leadership base, we have people who led the church from Nigeria, who stayed here for years, full time, building the church. And that's the only way we can go. We just gotta have a church. Sometimes we kind of feel like, why do we have a full-time people? There are only 4 or 5 people in the church. Well, if you build it that way, I have never seen any. I mean, only a very few really that will last and grow to become 100 or 200 by volunteer leadership.
Right.
It's not going to work. So that's what I would say first to focus on. Get a very good, young, focused person where we can support on the full time. And what they do is lead that church and grow the church. And it's a sacrifice worth making, just like in planting, we just got to take care of the nursery. We've got to make it grow if we want our tree to grow.
Right.
So we've got to put a lot of stuff to make our churches that we plant strong. So that's where we are suffering too, because we are working backwards on this, really. Right. We have planted some churches and they are floundering and struggling. Right now, we're building a leadership base to go support. And now we're trying to send, and we can see the results of those churches when we send leaders there, and they are really growing. So, but again, hey, we grew the way we did. God blessed it. We can't complain. But right now, we've got to learn and be humble and do it, the way that will make those churches grow.
That's great. Thank you.
Again, it will take time, it will take money, it will take effort. So
I appreciate your advice and spoken, from an expert. So I really appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing this church take off and really experience a new revival. So let me just close by asking you a question. For those listening who are younger and they look at your life, they go, wow, here's this couple. They went through tough times, and yet now they've led a church that's flourished. They've really had an amazing ministry career. Their marriage is happy. Their kids are disciples. I go, okay, you guys have really got a lot going for you and have really done an amazing job. And you're still in your prime. Right now, you're really at your peak spiritually and planning on doing more. What advice would you give to those listening who want to make a difference with their lives, who want to live a no regrets life?
Wow.
Let me start with Rolayo.
Wow. Thank you, Rob. I think my what I would say is, wow, trust. Keep your eyes on God. Keep your eyes always on God. The Bible reminds us to fix our eyes on Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of our faith. And I think that is the best place to always remain. Keep your eyes on Jesus and trust the people that God has put around you, because we could not have done this by ourselves. I think for us, it's just God has blessed us with people who love us, awesome discipling partners, and being able to surrender our hearts to their leadership and being submissive to want to learn and grow has been so, so helpful for us. And I just would advise that just keep your eyes on God and trust that God has put you where you can grow and bloom. If you just love what he has put around you, love those who lead you, submit to them, keep your eyes on Jesus, and allow yourself to really trust and grow. And I think it's just believing in what God has planned for you, believing that God does have a plan for you, and he can raise you up to attain what he has in store for you. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, that was good advice. Yeah, I don't think I could have said it any better. I think that's the golden nugget. It's all about God. I don't think we could have done what we've done, and it's still God. I mean, he's teaching us a lot, whether at the beginning, at the middle, and now, and in the future.
Yeah,
it's still God. God is still navigating us through this. So for me, it's the same thing. Just be someone who is out there to please God. You know, whatever we do, we're going to answer to God. I know that there's so many things we want to achieve in life. I know when I came into the church, I want to be an evangelist. And the question my disciples is, why do you want to be an evangelist? You know, I couldn't find an answer to that. When I just want to be I was like, why is he asking me? Are you not fired up that I want to be an? It's not, you know, what you want to be is what will God make of your life?
Right.
You know, what do you want to surrender to God to mold and make you, rather than what you want to be? You know, I think for everything, we just need to surrender. Like, I think my favorite passage is Paul saying that in the house there is an article. There are many articles,
right?
You know, but when you make yourself well, you can become an article of noble purposes. You know, what do you want to be? What do you want God to make out of you? You don't have to be an evangelist. You don't have to be anything, but just be an instrument in the hands of God for noble purposes. That's the article I want to be. I don't know. I never dreamt I was going to be able to do all this. I mean, we feel very honored. Sometimes when people talk about, oh, you did this, that, I'll just have goosebumps. And it's like, wow, really? You know? But I'm just happy that God has seen me as an article to be used, wretched, sinful, trying to mold me and all that, and that I can be useful. I think every day that's what I want to pray. God, keep using me, make me an article of noble purpose. And whatever that is, God will make you that. You know, that's an answer God.
It's a prayer
God answers quickly. He will and just surrender to him and let him use you the best way he can. So
wow. Well, Chris and Rolayo, thank you so much for your time. And I'm reminded of the scripture when Paul said, you know, are you not my crown and my joy? And I think about all of the people that you've impacted, all of the churches that you've planted, and how you must be filled with a sense of pride and a sense of joy at all the people that are in your crown and you'll present to God when you pass. And I think it's very inspiring and super inspiring to me, and I'm sure very inspiring to others listening. And I just want to say, just be praying for your work there, and please pray for our work here. And I look forward to our paths crossing at some point in the future.
Oh,
Amen. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much for joining the Rob Skinner podcast. If you're enjoying this podcast, please hit the subscribe button and let your friends know about it and how to find it. Because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.